So a few weeks back, I did a keynote speaking session, with one of the big three insurance companies here in Singapore. And back then, reached out and, basically I agreed to it because why not, right? And what happened was that, everything went well. The keynote was great. The session was great. It went as expected. But what I did not expect is to learn a lesson. I got reminded of one very big lesson, basically changed the way I work right now and how I look at effort, when it comes to life and business as a whole. And if you don't know me, basically my name is Ben. I'm the CEO of Authentic Advice Systems, and we help financial advisors basically reach more lives, make more impact, while being happy, purposeful, and authentic. Okay, so I make these videos because I really hope that by documenting the lessons that I've learned on this journey and things that I share with our own financial advisors, our own mastermind community, it might even help you make more money, progress further in not only business and life, and one day you might want to work with us closer together. Back to the story, right? So this particular company reached out, I did a keynote for it, and then what happened was, like the biggest catch of it, right? Like this sounds normal, but the biggest catch, right, to begin with was that I did it for free. Okay, and I did it for free because of two reasons. Number one, I thought like it'd be good and cool to do it for free and generate goodwill, right? Because it never hurts to have good relationship and generate goodwill for free and give value way in advance to basically especially a big company, right? So that's one. Number two, I didn't know what to quote. Like I have no idea like what the fees were, like how much I say or whatever. So I just, I just thought like, okay, I just say that I'm doing it for free, right? And which on hindsight, I could have like taken the time, asked my friends about it and whatnot before I get back, right? But anyway, I just like say, I do it for free, right? Why not, right? Just whatever, right? So that happened. Just for context, like if you are a new speaker, like you're not even seasoned, you don't even have certificates and whatnot, like usually the fees are a minimum of like 3 to 5,000. Let's say it's about 4 to 5,000 kind of like range. If for a speaker that has not had too much, it's just not as seasoned, right? So basically still new, So again, like if you're maybe more seasoned, we're talking about like maybe $8, $9, $10,000, right? Yeah, so that's basically what I missed out, basically in terms of opportunities, right? However, I just want to be very clear, which is like the company did ask me for a quote. I just thought it'd be cool to do it for free, and like I mentioned, I just didn't know what to quote. Okay, so they did ask me for a quote, right? And they're willing to pay, right? So I was preparing for the keynote, preparing the draft and whatnot. I've done a lot of sharings, I've done a lot of trainings, masterminds, host a lot of things. I have no fears when it comes to public speaking and whatnot, because I'm pretty much comfortable with that, and it's just kind of like in me, right? However, like keynote, for insurance companies, it's kind of like, okay, you got to be like good, right? You got to be like, have some standards or whatever it is, so on and so forth. And so I was preparing for the keynote, draft and everything else. And for 1 week before the event itself, right, I went away for a trip in Japan. Context was that prior to the trip, I already done basically the draft about like 10 hours or so, kind of work, planning out the draft, kind of how the slides would be like, yada yada. And all I needed was that during the trip was just to refine it, right? Just to refine, add in certain things, and it's good, right? Make sure the sequence is good. So what happened was that, I went on a trip, and then every day I was working on it, right? Every day, like in the morning, I was working on it and whatnot, and even at night actually. After dinner, I came back and I put in another few hours and whatnot. So every day I was putting maybe 4 or 5 hours into really going to work on slides. And here's the thing, right? As I was spending more time and working on it and refining it, I just thought it could be better. Like it feels like the more you refine, the more things you can add on. The more things, in fact, I would say add on. The more things you want to eliminate and make sure it's as smooth as possible, right? As clear as possible, and it gets the point across. People get value. You got to think of like, okay, maybe the audiences are of this demographic and psychographic. How can this relate to them at this point, right? That kind of stuff, right? It's just like so many areas that I thought of and I really just want to work on, right? Overall, basically, I just felt it could be way better, and I decided to reiterate even more, right? So I was working on it every single day on trip, and even on the flight back, I was taking business class back, right? From Japan, so it's about a good 5-6 hours, right? I did not like enjoy any of it in terms of like the amenities or whatever. I just say like, okay, give me a meal, and then like number two, right, just give me sparkling water. And then I was just like doubling down on like the work, right? Like it was like a 6 p.m. flight, so I reached back around like 1 a.m. or so. It was just work. The event was on Tuesday. I came back Monday past midnight, right? So then the moment I came back, I slept maybe 4 or 5 hours, and then spent the entire day reiterating, creating more stuff, eliminating certain things that's not needed, rehearsing, right? So you might be thinking at this point in time, like, okay, so what's the big deal, right, about you doing all these things, right? The big deal, I wouldn't say big deal, but I think the thing that happened when I was doing it was this. I started to have thoughts coming in my head. One of it was like, I was just thinking to myself, like, shit, this is a lot of work. This is way more work than I expected, right? So that's number one. And number two is I was thinking to myself, right, which is, you see, I was calculating the number of hours I put in this work, right? So my hourly rate, if I will calculate it, is about like maybe $400 an hour. And this is also, basically when people consult me one-on-one, they pay more than 400, but let's say conservatively it's $400 an hour. I spend a good close to 28, 30 hours on it, right? So easily it's about like $12,000 worth. And I'm doing it for free. right? I'm doing it for free because, I didn't charge, right? If you look at 12K, then plus another, let's say $5,000 I've gotten from the quote, it could be, let's say, $17,000, right? And the thing is, I'm doing it for free, I mean, the truth here is like, would it have made me feel a little bit better if I get paid like $5,000 for it? Probably, right? And then beyond that, it's like during the Japan trip, I was like, shit, I could just enjoy my Japan better. I could have sleep more, and all the 1,001 things, right? Or I could just work on other things on my business, right? There are also some not so nice thoughts, which is like, I should just get it over and done with, and move on, right? And those thoughts were coming in throughout the time I was doing it, right? And this was when, in the very instant, right? One of the days I remembered this, and I remembered these words from someone I look up to. He said this. He said that no work is ever wasted, and that the work works on you more than the work itself. So I repeat, right? No work is ever wasted, because the work works on you more than the work itself, right? What does that actually mean, right? Basically, to me at least, the way I interpret it is that more often than not, we put in effort because there's a tangible outcome that we want to create or we want to achieve. So for example, we do prospecting for 5 hours because there's a certain number of appointments that you want to get, right? We go for appointments because there's a certain amount of closings that you want to do. So we do work because of a certain tangible outcome that we can see. Work is only wasted, or at least most people feel like work is wasted if we put in so much effort and everything else, and then there's no tangible outcome, right? So they'll be like, wasted, yeah, because we do these things and then we never get this, or this didn't happen in XYZ circumstance, right? So we'll call it as wasted work. Now, the reason why no work is ever wasted in this phrase, right, is because the real outcome, the real output, right, is ourselves. Regardless of the tangible outcome, the real outcome, right, the work is doing is that it's on ourselves. So the work on us more than the work itself. So what you're trying to say is that we do the work not only because of like the tangible outcome, but we do it and it's never wasted because we always become a better person. We always develop the skill sets, the experience, the beliefs that makes us who we are, right? Because at the end of the day, at least for me in this situation, is that what I've gotten and achieved is not the money, because there isn't to begin with. In fact, I lost, right? But rather becoming a better person as a result. So what have I gotten out of it, right? Very simple. So for one, it's like, to me, I passed my own test of standards, right? And what I mean, before the Japan, or maybe even during refinement of Japan, right, I could just create a 7 out of 10 kind of like work, which is honestly way more decent, and it has really can gotten the point across, right? So it's a 7 out of 10, right? Now, what I've decided was that like 7 wasn't good enough. I really feel I could do a lot better, so I went from a 7 to probably a 10, right, in my opinion. The thing here is this, from 1 to 7, well, in most things also in life, from a scale of 1 to 7, right, like you have to go from 1 to 7, it probably maybe take you like 6, 7, 8 hours, for example, right? Now, if you want to go from 7 to 10, it usually takes like twice or thrice the number of hours to go from 7 to 10, more than the 1 to 7. So that was really kind of funny, right? And in fact, like I put in a lot more hours during the Japan trip, on the flight back, and once I'm back, right, more than before I went on the trip to Japan when I was preparing for the draft, right? I passed my own test of standards. Number 2, I got better at the slides, and I really hate doing slides, by the way. I really hate doing slides, but I got better at it. And number 3, I got better at speaking, for sure, right? It gives me that reinforcement again. And I think more importantly, the 4th one, right, which is like, it just reinforced the entire belief that I can do anything and make anything happen regardless of where I am, right? Regardless whether I have a big screen monitor like right now, or whether I have a small little laptop, whether I'm in Singapore, in Japan, in a core or whatever it is, right? I can do it, I can make things happen. And ultimately, this basically just creates an identity that serves me and my life. So that's really the biggest lesson that I've learned just from this recent incident or event that happened. The second story I'm going to share is that back then in 2019, when I left the industry, the insurance industry and whatnot, right? I allowed for a year. Meaning to say that I didn't do anything for a year because I was lost, right? I just don't know what identity I'm having, identity crisis, whatever you call it, right? And so what happened was that one of that part of the journey, right, is that I went to relationship coaching, right? Because I thought that could be a viable business that could earn some money and basically something I could enjoy, which I did. I spent like 4 or 5 months, I think, just really reading, studying, going for courses, programs, right? And then coming up with mental models, frameworks, and basically exercises to really help people have better romantic relationships. I even made content, and we had an Instagram page. It used to call fulfilling, FOOL, then feeling, because our feelings always fool us when it comes to communication with our loved ones, right? Then of course we pivoted into, now it's called Alpha Maintain, like Alpha, then MANTAIN, right? So if you look back at the content and the Instagram, right, you can see that like we literally created content. I literally even filmed the videos, right? to do video content. I actually run a few boosted posts and whatnot, and in order to get some appointments, leads, and earn some money and whatnot, right? Right. The truth is that totally flunk. And you understand, like, we created all this content and like it's so much work, right? To do content and then replying to all the DMs and whatnot. But we never ever had a chance to make money. If you think about that, and on hindsight, if you look at it, right, I could say that was a waste of my time. That was something that wasn't a good use, right? Because like technically I failed. I tried to start a business and then I failed. What happened was that, when I started this sales and training coaching business for advisors and whatnot, a lot of clients, right? Sometimes we have one-to-ones, when we have chats and whatnot. Personal relationship do tend to come into play with their loved ones or even with parents and whatnot. And the reason why I even talk about that to begin with is because personal and business life always intertwined. So like if your personal life is affected, it will somewhat always affect the business side of things, right? So if you break up, you have a big argument, and whatnot, you probably have a messier business life, right? So that's really what happened. And the beautiful thing about it is that I was able to relate. I was able to even share, coach, and even teach about like the things I've done in the past or learned during that few months of like relationship coaching and whatnot, right? And then be able to help them get clarity and awareness of like how their behaviors are like, what they should or should not be doing, helping them to understand their partners even better. And this speeds up the process of not dwelling into basically the emotions and sinking into a rut, right? It helps them to overcome that so much better. And the thing is that I would not have been able to do it if I otherwise didn't have the experience of putting into the work back then in 2019, right? That few months of starting it. So that's really like story number 2. Now, story number 3, which is the last one, which is that, again, when I left the industry back in 2019 and whatnot, right? It was very hard. Yeah, I voluntarily like left, but it was still hard, right? Because like you need to understand, when you're taking back 23,000 a month at the age of like 22, going 23 years old, right? You are basically earning more than your professor who's teaching you on, I don't know, accounting or management accounting. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's a lot of money, right? I was driving my car, my Audi, I was like having my Rolex, yada and all the 1,001 things, right? That a young guy, likes to have. So what happened was that when I left, I had to, number one, let go of all these things. Number two, right, which is the more scary part, is I had to let go of my identity that I thought that I would have held on for the rest of my life, which is become an advisor, do sales, have a team, go up to director, and then like, just have fun, right? And then earn money and then eat omakase or whatever, like that kind of stuff, right? I thought like, that would have been quote unquote career path, or like I would set for life, in this manner. And that didn't happen. And I think it was just a reality that I did not expect for it to be broken in that manner. Okay, I didn't expect that I would lose it. So it's kind of like the first 2.5 years, I was going up the trajectory as an advisor, manager, everything else, and then just boom, dead, right? Like just ground zero, literally. So that was a very hard part. Lost the identity, took MRT after like, not taking it for years, right? And whatnot, and I think maybe you watch this video, you'd be like, okay, like, I'm lame, right? Because like, MRT was a big deal or whatever. But I think it's just like, when the realities of the very fact that like, you didn't take MRT for a while, you thought you wouldn't do it anymore, and then like end up you tap your EZ card after like 2.5, 3 years, right? Of not taking MRT and public transport and whatnot. It's just a very humbling experience. And I had to go through that, right? And I allowed for a year, like I mentioned. So like I didn't do anything much for a year except for the relationship coaching stuff, right? The point here is that I could have looked back and said that that 1 year, that very 1 year, I didn't do anything, set me back in my life behind my goals. I can say it set me back for 1 year. My goals were X, Y, Z, and then like now it's 1 year further ahead, right? In fact, it could be more, and just think that it's a waste of my time and life and whatnot, right? And really just held on to that victimized mentality or whatever. I could have said that. I could have thought of it that way. However, I'm glad I've been through that. I'm glad I experienced that, because the last 4 years of running this sales coaching trading business for advisors is that it allows us to, number one, right, or me and my partner, to really build a business on with very right strong core values. In fact, like before we even started the business and whatnot, or rather as we going to stabilize it, right, we thought about all the core values that we want to adhere to, that is truly what we believe in and what we have, right? Because back then it's like when you're young, in school they'll teach you like, oh, perseverance, courage, greed, whatever, right? But the truth is that when you're young, you think to yourself like, integrity, all these things, 可以吃的咩? Like you can't even feel, you can't even see, you can't even touch it, right? I'm trying to say. So it's like what's the point? Like you don't really understand like what does core values truly mean, right? You don't really understand what it means. You kind of like understand the definition, but you do not understand truly what it means to have that core value, unless you're in a situation where you have been tested. Your core values are tested, right? That's where you know whether you actually have those values or not, right? That's the truth. That's the only way you find out, right? The only way you find out whether you have certain core values is when you're put in a situation where you're tested. So when you are in a situation whereby you could have like stole something and get away with it, you can have the option to do that, but yet you choose the other option to not do it and do the right way, right? That's where you know your core values, right? And that's where you can truly know that you have a value of integrity. So core values was one. And I think like it allows me to be more authentic and congruent with the things I do and say as well. So one of the things that happens in the advisory space, right, is that there's so much red tape, regulations and whatnot, whether it's a company, government, or just basically how the space is like, right? Where you gotta have, I'm not saying it's like fake, I'm just saying like you gotta have some kind of facade, like 客气话, you know what I mean? Like, oh, there's certain things you say, certain things you don't say, kind of like a cultural kind of thing, right? And there's so many things that I love to share and say and whatnot, like air my own opinions that I truly believe in, that I hold back a lot of things because like it's just not appropriate, right? You gotta make friends with the corporate people, that kind of bullshit, right? So what happened was that like when I left and everything else, I started this business, I can say whatever I want. Obviously not like scolding people or whatever, but like kind of whatever I want in the manner of like, these are my beliefs, this is what I truly believe in doing and saying and whatever, and therefore that's why I do it, right? I'm able to say it without being afraid per se, that it might be wrong to others or whatever it is, right? Because this is what I truly believe in. Now, of course, there's always a point of like being appropriate, being tactful with the things that we say. I think that's decency or like a basic level of like EQ in my opinion, right? But generally speaking, like these are things that just want to be authentic in the way that we do things and basically live a more purposeful and authentic life, right? So which is why like our business is called Authentic Advice Systems, right? Because in a community that we have, we just really want to encourage that, and live a life that is truly ours, not just like copying and modeling other people. So that's really that, right? And I think even with our own clients, it allows me to relate back to them. It allows me to understand where they are at because I've been through it before, and letting them know that I walked through that path. And I think somehow it just gives that light of hope or inspiration, hopefully, they are with someone that been through all those shit before, and that everything's okay, right? At the end of the day, as long as we put our heart and our work into it and that we don't give up, right? So that's kind of a big idea here, and I think like I would have had lesser depth in terms of my thought process and me as a person if I did not go through all the down things, right? All the downsides, all the bad things that happen. In my opinion, it's like, again, no work is ever wasted, you see? Like no work is ever wasted because all the things that we've been through, all the efforts that I put in, and let's say in my experiences in the last like 7 years or so being an FA and all the shit that I went through, right, helps me and builds me become a better person. And therefore the success that I have, right, the mild success that I have, I'll put it. The thing here is that like, remember we always hear this thing called like be do have, right? Which is basically in order for you to have the things that you want to have, you got to do the work, and in order to do the work, you got to be the person, right? Be to have, right? So this ties in with another thing, which is like most people see a man or a woman having multiple millions and having a nice house, all the cars and everything else, and they see that and then they conclude that this person is successful because of the material possessions that they have, right? Or the things that they can see. But the real truth is that it's actually the other way around, whereby this person is actually successful within him or herself and therefore attracts those things. So the success needs to come first before the material possessions. You know what I mean? So that's why it's always like be to have, right? From the inner to the outer. And I think at the end of the day, the efforts and everything put in helps to create the being. All the things I've been through creates the being of becoming a better person, a wiser person, and having more substance in that sense, more groundedness also, and having that level of maturity, because like words can be words, but like when you can hear someone talk and you know that someone has been through things, you know that this person like has depth, right? Like I've been through all the shit that in life. At the end of the day, remember that like no work is ever wasted because the real work is on ourselves more than what we produce on the outside. And this took me a long while to understand, and I still constantly need to be reminded of it, right? And because of all the things we go through, that we are working on ourselves, we are looking at like the experience together, the wisdom, the skill sets, the traits, the self-confidence, and I think this gives a different light on how we, or at least how I view work, which is we are just not afraid of work. We are just afraid of wasted work. And by understanding that, remembering that work is never wasted, this has allowed me to continue working, put in the efforts, even if I can't see a tangible outcome, or even if the tangible outcome that I want does not happen, because the real product and the outcome is me. These are honestly kind of like the things I feel like kind of like can take with me when I die. Also the thing that I could leave behind for my family or for other people, for them to model or reference to, because when you look at Warren Buffett, we look at all these people, we admire or respect them or even get inspired, not because of the money, but because of who they are, right? As a person, what kind of core values that they have themselves. Then I think last point is we set goals not because of achieving the outcome and the goals only, but because of the person that we become in the process. This is basically the personal lesson, my biggest lesson that I've learned from this entire event, and I hope this serves you, and I'll see you in the next video.